Hello, listeners. I am your host, Jack Murphy, and welcome to the In the Hole podcast, where we'll be talking all things baseball. We'll be going over all news regarding scores, trade rumors, injury updates, and free agency signings. We'll also talk about expectations, strengths, and weaknesses for all MLB teams, as well as predictions on futures of ball clubs. Welcome to episode 1. At this time, the Dodgers are facing the Tampa Bay Rays in the World Series. However, we're going to steer away what everyone is already talking about, and today we're going to discuss what I believe the All-Star teams would be for the 2020 season. Now, due to the COVID outbreak, we obviously know that we're not going to get the annual All-Star game that we are used to. However, it doesn't mean we can't predict what the teams would have been. So let's get right into it. Usually, an All-Star game is played every year. However, since we have a shortened season due to the coronavirus, the MLB scrapped the season's games. The MLB selects players to represent the American League and the National League in their annual All-Star games, and these two teams will battle it out. They're the players who perform the best at their respective positions up until this point. It's not necessarily just the biggest names that are playing in the game, it's who's doing the best this season. So players could be like the best player going into 2020, but they can have a crappy 2020. They're not going to be named All-Stars just for their name recognition, or at least most of the time, unless they're huge like a Mike Trout, because Mike Trout's just so big that people are going to vote him in anyway. Today, we're going to break down who would be All-Star teams in the 2020 season. I'll say who I think should be the All-Star and the runner-up for each position based on each of their performances. So I'm not only going to pick my who I believe should be the all-star, but I'm going to pick who a runner-up should be. So let's say that it's kind of close between two people. Even if it's not close, I'm going to give you the reason why I chose player A over player B, because I would think player A is better than player B, but I'm going to give obviously facts and statistics to prove why player A is better than player B. It might be because he put up better offensive numbers, or they maybe player A and player B have similar offensive numbers, but player A might have the advantage in the field, or he's just a better fielder. So yeah, I'm obviously going to bring up stats and research to prove my opinions. And also, a tricky position to go over is the pitchers. Obviously, position players, you just pick two from each position, but when it comes to pitchers, there's starters, catcher, or starting pitchers, relieving pitchers, and closing pitchers. So basically, what I'm going to do for this part, I'm going to just name three starters who I think are the top three pitchers, my three aces, and then I'm going to do two relievers. I think that's fair. It gives a team a total of five pitchers, and I feel more people are more interested in who the best starters in the league are rather than who the best relievers in the league are. So the starters are the ones that are winning the Cy Young Award, so I feel like that is the best idea. And then after I do all of this, after I list off all my teams, I will then give my prediction for this completely hypothetical winner of the All-Star game. So I'm going to give my prediction to see who I think is going to win the MVP. I'm going to give my prediction to see how I think a pitcher will do. Maybe if certain players I think are going to have an easy time facing a certain pitcher, or vice versa, or if a pitcher is going to completely wash the other team. I'm going to give all of that in my predictions, and I'll even give you guys my not my American League, my All-Star Game MVP for this game that's not even happening. So yeah, how about let's not waste any more time, and I'll tell you guys who my All-Stars for 2020 is. All right, so let's start it off with the American League team. And first, we're going to do with who's behind the plate, who's going to be playing the catcher position. And this season, I think the clear American League pick is Christian Vasquez. Catcher is definitely a weak position, especially in the American League. However, Christian Vasquez, who has always been a very, very talented defensive catcher, this year he wanted to produce offensively. So yeah, he has to get the nod here. He had a 283 batting average, 801 OPS, 7 home runs, and 23 RBIs, and he does, as I said before, provide great defense behind the plate. We all knew that he was a great defender, but yeah, he wanted to show how good he was with his bat this year too. So that has to get him the nod. The Red Sox have been disappointing this season, but they do get the starting catcher for the All-Star game. And then my runner-up is Yasmani Grandal. He is again a phenomenal hitter, hitting catcher. He had 8 home runs, 27 RBIs, a 280 batting average, and OPS just under 800. However, the reason why Vasquez gets the nod, even though they do have similar offensive stats, is because he's just not the same player as Christian Vasquez defensively. And I want to say a dishonorable mention. Sorry, I'm a Yankee fan, so I want to put a dishonorable mention in here. Gary Sanchez is bad, and he's supposed to be known for his offensive production. However, he doesn't produce offensively, so So people use his defense, his bad defense, his good offense, which doesn't really exist, as an excuse for his bad defense, and it annoys me as a Yankee fan. It really annoys me because he doesn't even have good offense. He can't hit the ball. So excuse me for my rant. I just wanted to get that off my chest. I feel a lot better now. And let's move on to first base. Now, this one I couldn't pick an honorable mention because there's just two players that both killed it. These two players are both going to be top five candidates for the MVP voting, and it would be a crime. It would be a crime if I did not include both of them on the All-Star team. So first, we're going to talk about Luke Voit of the New York Yankees, first baseman. He led the league in home runs. I mean, how are you going to leave off the home run king off an All-Star game list? 22 home runs, a 277 batting average, which is not the highest, but when you're the home run king, it doesn't really matter. 948 OPS. Jose Ramirez led the league in RBIs, 59 RBIs, and he still had 17 home runs, and he had an even better OPS than Luke Voit. Luke Voit doesn't provide the best defense at first base, neither does Jose Abreu, but first base isn't a position that defense matters so much. So these guys are just swinging the bat with the best of them this year. So they definitely both deserve a spot. Second baseman is an easy choice. DJ LeMahieu, by far the best second baseman in the league this season. He led all second basemen in batting average, on base percentage, OPS, WAR. He was by far the best pick. Don't get me wrong, Brandon Lau, my runner-up. He pretty much any other year, he'd probably be the pick for second base because he had such an amazing year too. But DJ LeMahieu, he's going to be another top five MVP candidate just by how well he played for a Yankee team, which was rather disappointing in the regular season. They wouldn't have made the playoffs in any other format. So I got to give that one to DJ. So third base is another MVP candidate, so there's really no question here, is Jose Ramirez of the Cleveland Indians. He exploded in September, and that inflated his numbers a little bit, but he still did play great all year round. He finished with an OPS of 993 with a 290 batting average. He finished with 17 home runs and over 50 RBIs, which is, again, in a shortened season, are just phenomenal numbers. He also led the league in wins above replacement, and as history shows, whoever leads the league in wins above replacement goes on to win the MVP. So it looks like Jose Ramirez might win his first MVP of his career after two third place finishes in both 2017 and 2018. So, now that he's out of the way, let's talk about Anthony Rendon, who's my runner-up. Still had a great year after a phenomenal MVP caliber campaign in 2019. He comes back, and what does he do? He does the same thing again. The reason why you don't hear about him much anymore, though, is because he's playing with some guy. You might have heard of him. His name is Mike Trout, the best player in baseball. And he's not getting the recognition he deserves this year because he has still had an OPS of 916, this being Anthony Rendon, a batting average of 286, and he still provides pretty good defense at third base. Nothing spectacular, but he can hold his ground at the hot corner. So he's definitely my runner-up for the third base position. And now shortstop. This is a little bit of a weaker position, but I gotta go with my man Tim Anderson from the Chicago White Sox. And he had a 322 batting average just a year after winning the batting title. And a lot of people said, oh, Tim Anderson was a fluke. Well, guess what? He hit over 320 again this year. So he's proven to himself he wasn't a fluke. He didn't win the batting title because DJ LeMahieu did, because he had the best batting average in the league. Basically, that's how that goes. But he had a better batting average, but still 322 is still a phenomenal batting average for any player to have. And Tim Anderson proved that he's one of the best contact hitters in the game. Now his fielding has to improve a little bit before he's among the elite names. And also the runner-up is Xander Bogaerts, who is probably overall a better offensive player, but I say Tim Anderson had the better season this year. And he is also a terrible defensive shortstop, so in a position where usually we are seeing a ton of defensive first shortstops like Andrelton Simmons, Francisco Lindor, all these diamond caliber shortstop players, or the shortstops, it's kind of weird to see these bats that aren't the best defensive players. So another weaker position in the American League is left field, and Eloy Jimenez, also the Chicago White Sox, would probably get the All-Star nod here just because of how good his bat is. He's a great bat. He had 16 home runs, over 260 OPS. Definitely the best offensive left fielder in the game. However, with how good his offensive bat is, his fielding, his glove is equally as bad. He is by far one of the worst fielders, not only on the White Sox, but in the league. If you watched him at left field, he looked like a child back there. He was so clumsy. He had no arm. He had no arm accuracy. He needs to be a designated hitter, and soon, because he has no idea what he's doing. It looks like he has no idea what he's doing out there. And because his bat's so good, that does give him the edge over my runner-up, the first Houston Astro on this list, and one of two Houston Astros on this list, of Kyle Tucker. He also had a great year, had an 830 OPS. Didn't have the power, as much power as my man Eloy Jimenez did over here, but you know what? He was a little bit better the fielder. In the end, though, I got to go with Eloy Jimenez just because of the presence that he has over Kyle Tucker in the batter's box. All right, center field. Did you guys ever think, if you guys thought it wasn't Mike Trout, you would be wrong. Obviously, my center field all-star selection will be Mike Trout of the Los Angeles Angels. He just proves again this year why he's the best player in baseball. OPS was at 993, which is like fifth in the league. He's again only a handful of players can have an OPS near 1,000. He had 17 home runs, which was only 5 home runs off the league's best, and he's just proven he's the best player in baseball. His fielding has slipped a little bit this year. However, with his bat and his consistency since he was 19 years old in the year 2011, he has proven he is the best player. Now, my second Astro on here is George Springer, and he was one of the more prominent Astros of the 2017 team. He was known as an all-star, but now after this year, there was a lot of scrutiny he was under because of his role in the cheating scandal the Houston Astros were involved in from 2017 and maybe 2018, 2019. We don't really know. They haven't been proven to do it that year, but people still believe they do. And you know what? He kind of proved himself this year. He had an 850 OPS or an 890 OPS. He was one of the best hitters, if not the best hitter, on don't get me wrong, a disappointing Astros team until the playoffs. But you know what? He's still, other than Trout and Springer, the American League does drop off, so he's definitely the second man in center. So right field, most underrated player probably of this year is Teoscar Hernandez. He had a phenomenal year with a 919 OPS, a 289 batting average, and 16 home runs. And a lot of people think of right fielders. They think of Christian Yelich, they think of Mookie Betts, they think of Aaron Judge. But it's time to put Bryce Harper. I don't know if it's time to put Teoscar Hernandez's name in that conversation yet, but he has shown potential that he could be with those names in the future. He had a phenomenal season, and he just did really, really good. Toronto Blue Jays are a young squad. They're probably going to be good for a while, and it's going to be excited to watch them for the next few years. And my runner-up here might be some bias. This might be the only pick. I think there might be some bias here, but I personally do think Clint Frazier would be the runner-up for the All-Star game. He basically showed the Yankees just how good he really is. He not only showed the Yankees he's one of the best bats on the Yankees, he showed them that he deserves to be in the MLB. No more minors in him. No more alternative site for him. He should be in the majors. He should be a starter every day. He won't be playing right field because Aaron Judge is all right fielder, but he deserves to be somewhere in that Yankees lineup. And if he's not in the Yankees lineup, he really deserves to be a spot on another lineup, on another team's lineup, because he should be playing Major League Baseball every day. He is potentially be one of the best hitters in the league. And now we're on to the pitchers. My starting pitcher, I got Shane Bieber, obviously, for number one, the ace. He won the Triple Crown. He had more wins than anyone else, more strikeouts than anyone else, and a lower ERA than anybody else. He was just pure dominant in 2020. He's easily going to win the Cy Young in the American League. There's no pitcher better than him this season. Dallas Keuchel, he's been mediocre for the last few years, but this year he kind of got back to what he was in like 2015, 2016 with the Houston Astros. His ERA was under 2. He's not a strikeout pitcher anymore just because he doesn't have the same velocity and movement, but his location looked very, very good this year. And Gerrit Cole, Gerrit Cole, I mean, yes, he had a little bit of a rough stretch in the middle of the season. However, he did play against the two toughest divisions in the American League East and the NL East, and because of that, I think he deserves the nod. He didn't really have an easy schedule, and he was still pretty dominant as a pitcher. When Gerrit Cole was on, he was the most unstoppable pitcher in baseball. And then relievers is the last portion of the American League before we end it. The American League's portion. Nick Anderson of the Tampa Bay Rays had an ERA of .5, which is absolutely unheard of, even for a 60-game season, and he wasn't the closer, so he didn't have many saves. I think he only had 2, but but he still was one of the best. He was the best setup man in baseball, one of the best we've ever had. And then Liam Hendriks of the Oakland Athletics has been underrated for so many years. I really think he's going to win reliever of the year for 2020. And his ERA was under 2, as I said, and he was also second to only Brad Hand of the Cleveland Indians in saves. So that concludes my team for the American League. Now let's head on to the National. All right, so for the National League, again, we're going to start with catcher, just like we did for the American League. And obviously, the catcher in the National League is JT Realmuto. He led all catchers in baseball in OPS, home runs, and batting average. So he is the clear-cut pick for the National League. And Wilson Contreras, he was right behind him. Not right behind him. There was a decent margin, but he was up next in every single category, and he realistically just wasn't as good as JT Realmuto, and therefore he is the runner-up for catcher. First base is probably who's going to win the National League MVP in Atlanta Braves first baseman Freddie Freeman. He was second in the league in OPS with 1.102, and he had an on-base percentage of 462 and 53 RBIs, while also being one of the better defensive first basemen in the league. He just has a great glove out there. He's great at scooping everything. Nothing gets by the guy. And Dominic Smith, he's more of a utility guy, but his primary position is first base of the New York Mets. So I'm going to list him here as a first baseman. He was also had a phenomenal season with a 993 OPS, provided great defense in the outfield, at first base, wherever you put him. He was a really good defender. So he's definitely up as an honorable mention as our runner-up. Second base, we have for the rest of our infield, each member of the infield other than first base will be a member of the San Diego Padres. Spoiler alert, at second base it'll be Jake Cronenworth. He was the easy choice here. The second base in the National League was not a very, very heavy position. It was very weak. He batted a nice 285. He had an 831 OPS. He was a pretty solid batter. He had 15 doubles. Wasn't the biggest power threat. He only had 4 home runs. But honestly, he was also a good glove at second base. And because of the lack of second baseman in the National League, successful second baseman in the National League, I don't even have a runner-up for this one. There really was no one else that even stood out. So Jake Cronenworth gets to celebrate his all-star election from Jack Murphy by himself. Now we got shortstop again, San Diego Padre, as I mentioned earlier, is Fernando Tatis Jr., one of the most exciting young players in the whole sport of baseball. He was second in wins above replacement. I'm sorry about that. He was second in wins above replacement to Freddie Freeman, and he led the league. He led all shortstops in home runs, RBIs, and he had 11 stolen bases. And he's also a great fielder. So he's definitely a true five-tool player. Five-tool player meaning you can hit for contact and power, so that's 2 tools. Then you can run, you're fast, you have a great arm. Fernando Tatis Jr. has one of the strongest arms at shortstop, and you can field. And Fernando Tatis has proven this year that he is one of the better fielders in the league. And runner-up, don't get me wrong, Trevor Story, another phenomenal player. Actually, offensively, he was very similar to Fernando Tatis Jr., but I think just because of the talent that Fernando Tatis Jr. showed in the field, showed on the diamond with his glove, kind of puts him over the hutch that Trevor Story just not is, even though Trevor Story still is a very good defender as well. And third base is the last San Diego Padre you'll see on this list is Manny Machado, who many people were quick to call overrated last season after one bad year. He is back, and he's one of the best players in the National League with a 950 OPS and 16 home runs in a shortened season. 304 batting average. People say he can't hit for contact. Well, he's proved that wrong, and he always has provided Gold Glove caliber defense. And a distant runner-up to Manny Machado is none other than Brian Anderson of the Miami Marlins, coming with another pretty solid season. Not the highest batting average at 255, but he did hit 11 home runs and an 810 OPS, so he has shown he is a pretty good slugger, and he always has a decent glove behind the plate, or they're at third base. Left field is quite an obvious choice. Juan Soto, he was the best hitter in the league this season. He had the highest OPS at 1,106. He also had an on-base percentage nearing 500, meaning he's gotten on base almost half the times he's went up to the plate. So his on-base percentage, I believe it was a 490. He had 13 home runs, showed decent power, got a lot of doubles, just got on base all the time, and it was a shame that the Nationals couldn't really do much behind him. So that's kind of a bummer. All right, so Juan Soto is obviously the left fielder choice, so my runner-up will be A.J. Pollock of the World Series bound Los Angeles Dodgers, and he had a big power year this year, led all left fielders in home runs, and he had an 881 OPS to show for it. He also had a 309 batting average, so the guy was just a great hitter this year. And for the American League, my first baseman, I couldn't decide. I said, all right, I can't make one a runner-up because they both just did so good, and they're both going to be top 5 MVP candidates. It would be a crime to leave one of them off. Well, guess what? Leaving these two center fielders off, one of these two center fielders off, would be a crime as well. So here we got two players that are belonging on the team, and we got Mike Yastrzemski at a 968 OPS, 10 home runs, and a 297 batting average, and played pretty solid defense. And we got Ronald Acuna Jr., who had a 987 OPS. He had a little bit more of power in his bat. He had 14 home runs and he had 8 stolen bases, so he's more of a threat on the base paths as well. Both these guys were great in the outfield. They were just great players. They were among the top names in the league. One of the top names in the league. They were in MVP conversations all year long. And, Acuna and Yastrzemski, it would be a shame to leave either of these guys off the list. All right, so in right field, again, right field, another player that has been gotten hit with the, oh, he's overrated bug for most of his career, and that is Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper has proven that he's not overrated this season. He's proven it last year, and it's not the fact that he is a top 10 player in baseball, because that is absolutely not true. It's because people say he's so overrated, overrated so much that he's just indeed not overrated anymore. He's probably a top 30, top 40 player in baseball, and people don't give the credit where credit is due. He had a 268 batting average this year. He had 14 home runs, a 420 on base percentage, and 8 stolen bases. He was a threat all around, and he has improved in the field since his time with the Washington Nationals. With the Phillies, he's been nothing but spectacular. And this was also another close one, but I'm going to have to give my runner-up to Mookie Betts, who is the second best player in baseball. I don't think he had quite the year that Bryce Harper did, but you know what? He is the best defensive outfielder in baseball, and he still had a great season at the plate with a 928 OPS, 292 batting average. He has some power in his bat as well. And yeah, I mean, Bryce Harper and Mookie Betts, it was really tough to pick these two for me, but I got to go with the Philly boy and Bryce Harper. And now we got the starting pitchers. Trevor Bauer's up first, Cincinnati Reds pitcher, who's going to be a free agent, one of the top free agents this season, who recently just announced that he will accept a long-term deal. He was on track to only be accepting a short-term 1-year deal, but now he might want more. And he was going to probably win the Cy Young this year with a 1.73 ERA and 100 strikeouts. Yu Darvish is my second pitcher to the Chicago Cubs. He had a phenomenal year after a few poor campaigns, and he had a 2.01 ERA. Yu Darvish also had 93 strikeouts, and we can't be naming top pitchers in the National League without mentioning Jacob deGrom. Jacob deGrom had a 2.38 ERA. Even though he wasn't as dominant and he wasn't the clear-cut best pitcher in the National League this season, he's still among the best. And when you're talking about best pitchers in baseball overall, you got to go Jacob deGrom as your number one. He also had 104 strikeouts. I believe that was second. It was first in the National League, and I believe it was second to only Shane Bieber in the entire MLB. Brandon Kinsler, he is my first reliever, and I think he's going to win reliever of the year in the National League just because the National League didn't have the best relievers this season, but he still had a good year, 2.20 ERA, and Brandon Kinsler also had 12 saves, and Josh Hader had 13 saves. His ERA was a little bit high, but that's because he gave a lot of really unlucky hits and stuff. He was definitely still one of the best relievers in baseball in Josh Hader. And now that concludes our American League and National League teams. I gave you my entire list for each one. So now what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to name who I think is going to win. And I think it's going to be a close battle. I think the final score is going to be 3-2, and I think your winner is going to be the American League. What do I think will happen in my hypothetical game? Well, I think the pitchers will pretty much be shut down. The scoring, I think, is going to come off. I think the National League will score first. I think they're going to go up 2-0. Fernando Tatis Jr. is going to get a hold of a high fastball and just drill it to left center field to make the score 2-0. And the next inning, I think Luke Voit will lead off the inning and just smack one back, cut the lead in half. And then it's going to be 2-1 for X amount of innings, whatever. That will happen probably the third or fourth. And then around the eighth inning, I think Mike Trout will get up bat with runners on second and third. Still 2-1, and then he's going to rip a double down the line, score 2 runs in, make the final score 3-2, and I think he will, because of that, will also earn All-Star Game MVP honors. So, again, American League, in my hypothetical All-Star Game, beats the National League 3-2. Next time on In the Hole, the MLB season will be over. So, we're pretty much going to dive into off-season rumors. Again, everyone will be talking about the World Series, so you can get that information somewhere else. We're not going to give you information that you can pretty much just get anywhere. So we're going to talk about the off-season rumors. People will probably talk about that, but not as quickly as we will, because there will still be people going over what happened in the World Series, going over what needs to be done. But we're going to talk about what free agents will go where. So where do you guys think this year's free agents will end up? Tune in next week to find out what we think. Thank you for listening.